Hi, hello, welcome back. My name is Devaraj. This is Bioenergetics, and this week we're going to be continuing to look at the different Reichian character types, and especially in the context of what can we do about it? What are the kind of treatment directions for each character type? And this week it's the turn of the oral character, also known as the merging pattern. And let's just briefly recap on what this pattern is. So the oral pattern is the second pattern that tends to emerge in infant psychology, and it usually emerges in the first year of life. And what causes it essentially is an inadequate connection or an inadequate sense of nurturing from the mother. It's not that the mother is necessarily hostile or pushing the child away in some way, it's just that they are not giving as much nurturing as the child needs and expects from their genes, from their DNA. And what this creates is a sense of inner deprivation inside the child, and that sense will stay with them unless it's treated. It will stay with them for life. It creates a person who is deeply seeking in life to merge. They're looking for another person that they can simply merge with. Now, this can in many ways seem like quite a spiritual endeavor, and indeed if you hang out on the spiritual scene, you will see quite a few oral characters who simply experience a deep need to merge with existence, or if they're into tantra, to merge with a lover. But it sounds very spiritual, but actually what they're doing is simply acting out an oral pattern from the first year of their life. And one problem with having this kind of deep need to merge is that it does make you very needy, particularly when you start to get close to another person, particularly a potential lover. And so, in the late teenage years, when we start to look around for lovers, what people will often realize is that if you become very, very needy with someone, it's a turn off. It's not a turn on. It's not a turn on. And you're going to find the door closed pretty quickly on that potential relationship. And realizing this, of course, many people in that age group start to repress this neediness. They start to push it down because, it's in the way of them creating relationships, in the way of them looking cool. And, well, the problem is, of course, is that just repressing it does not cause it to go away. It just means it's buried deeper in your psyche, and it's still going to keep on influencing your personality and coming up. Some people, in fact, repress it so deeply that they develop a compensating oral pattern, as it's called, and these people learn to simply give in the world. They may be working in the care professions or something like this, and they know that by simply giving all the time, they make themselves very needed by others, and they feel good, basically. But of course, it's not a healthy way to go through life, and in certain situations it could leave you overstressed, burned out, this kind of thing. The underlying kind of mental health condition that orals suffer from is depression. It's depression. And they tend, because their inner world does tend to be deprived and a bit empty. So let's take a look at what we can do about the oral pattern. And the most basic thing to understand, in kind of symbolic terms, is in one aspect of Reich's work was to consider the body as a vessel. It's also a concept that was found in alchemy back in the old days and stuff. And the vessel of the oral character is a vessel without very strong walls, basically, because they always want to merge, so they don't have much of a boundary. But of course, if you're trying to, fill the vessel up with energy so that there's energy for life, you need strong walls. You need walls that are strong enough to hold the energy. Consequently, with an oral character, if they're starting to get depressed, maybe the winter's coming on, they start maybe doing something to build some energy, but they find it doesn't really work because it's just dissipating. They haven't got a strong enough sense of energetic boundary with the world in order to really hold energy. And so this is what leads them into depression. And if you can understand this concept, okay, we've got to build up the wall, we've got to build up the boundary, and then we're going to fill with energy, then you can treat depression from the from oral characters, and you can generally treat the oral character as well. So what kind of things can we do to support this process? Well, we've said we need more boundaries, basically, which you can, mentally, you have to look inside and be vigilant. You have to say, okay, when am I behaving like an oral? When am I just being needy? When am I lying there fantasizing about some perfect relationship with someone out in the world or that you've seen on social media or whatever, you know, you're just fantasizing about merging with someone. Because when you're doing that, you're breaking down your boundary. And if you do it too much, you know, it's going to leave you suffering, basically, and change that. Also, on a physical, energetic level, you can work at the level of the belly, because the belly is where we naturally hold boundaries from. And so when there's energy in the belly, you know, when you can feel into your gut, then you've got this natural sense of boundary. You know? To do this, you know, you can look on my channel, my YouTube channel, for the right to exist exercise, you know, which slowly builds energy at a belly level over time. It'll build it. You need to stick with it, you know, you need to be willing to work with it, but it will start to build energy at a belly level. Then you'll have a stronger sense of boundary. And then when you charge yourself up with a bit of energy, you'll find you've got that energy and you can take it out into the world and do something meaningful, satisfying, that makes you feel good and not depressed, basically. So working at the belly is very important, very, very important, and generally mentally being vigilant and not allowing your energy just to dissipate off into fantasies and stuff like this. Okay, so let's look what other things we can do about the oral pattern, because there's a few other things that we can do. One thing which is very characteristic of the oral type is that their head tends to crane forwards, their neck is coming at a sort of angle like this. And, you know, I believe this is basically because they're trying to reach the nipple. They're trying to reach the nipple. You know, it's just craning forwards of the head, basically. And now, of course, in your mind, you're not feeling like, oh, I'm trying to reach a nipple, but it's happening in your body because, you know, that's the deeper layer of your unconscious manifesting and expressing itself. So neck release exercises can be very powerful. In the 52-week journey that I run online, you know, we do a whole weeks of neck release exercises which start to really take some of this tension, holding and dead areas out of the neck, particularly these two thick muscles at the back of the neck and all around the throat, so that the head starts to correct itself and you feel like the head is sitting more on top of your head. You're not kind of leaning forwards in this deprived state trying to reach something. Another very useful exercise relating to this, in fact, is that sucking exercise, because, you know, when you are born, one of the instincts which comes online is the instinct to suck, like sticking your tongue out, closing your mouth and pulling it back in quick, like this basic sucking reflex it just comes on, like I say, when you're born, and it's there for, you know, a year or two, a few years, and then it goes away again usually. And this reflex, if you practice it sitting or lying down in your bed or whatever, you know, and you do it for like 20-30 minutes at a time, or maybe up to an hour at a time if you feel to, you know, it will start to correct and it will start to give you a feeling of deep inner nourishment. You will notice it coming on as you do it. As the minutes progress, suddenly there's this feeling of like you're moving into a kind of early childhood bliss state. So this is a really great exercise to practice, but you can practice quite easily. Sucking exercise. Something else that is very, very useful for the orals is to get more grounding going. We already talked a bit about the belly and getting some energy in the belly, and then we also want to get the energy to flow down through the legs to the ground, so that the person feels like, hey, I'm standing on the ground. You know, I'm grounded, I'm present. So exercises which open up the muscles of the legs, which work on the holding in the ankles, that work on the hip flexors and the whole hip area and the pelvic area, you know, are very, very useful for the oral character, as they are indeed for all characters. Everyone could do with more grounding, in my experience. Okay, so those are some basic treatment directions, treatment notes for the oral character. If you're intrigued by this material and you want to go on a deep journey with bioenergetics and characterology, then do check out the 52-week Bioenergetics for Journey online course at bioenergetics.org.uk. I'll leave a link to it below. In that course, you know, the second half of the course, and it is a 1 to 2 year long online course with a lot of support, and there's a whole group of people doing it. But we really get into characterology on a very deep level, and you will learn a lot about how to remove these patterns from your body. Okay, thank you for tuning in. I hope you've enjoyed this video and it's been instructive, informative, useful for you in some way. Keep doing it. You can do it. I will speak to you again soon.